shadow can be very positive, and it holds enormously charged libidinal energy, power, vitality, that if gradually recognized, released, engaged with, transformed, but we have compassion, we have empathy, curiosity, and we keep on engaging, it transforms into the most amazing ally. So our unconscious urge to drink alcohol in an immoderate way, abusive way, is actually the first manifestation of our shadow. Welcome to the Unconscious Moderation YouTube channel. Today, we will talk about relationship between our shadow and drinking alcohol. Jung is famous for many, many things, but in the internet presence, maybe the most mentioned Jung's discovery is so-called the shadow. And as I, as accredited Jungian analyst, go through these internet information about the shadow, I usually get quite desperate because it is maybe with this particular phenomenon where the most deepest and most serious mistakes are made in misinformation. And usually it is what Jung didn't say and didn't explain about the shadow than what shadow is according to Jung or post-Jungian research. So what is shadow? It is interesting that our psyche, our soul, is an inner cosmos of very, very precisely structured and ordered energies and forces, which differ by their origin, by the categories, and how do they move and behave. So Jung discovered that in the deepest pillars of these energies are manifested to consciousness in the categories of feminine symbols, in the categories of masculine symbols. They're called anima, something that animates us, that has to do with mood landscapes, with our inner states of being. And anima, how we are animated. Anima forces that we can also find in female characters in dreams, whether they're animals or human characters, for example. The movement of these forces usually goes into the unknown, has the tendency to take us into the unknown, yet undiscovered parts of ourselves, because in that particular developmental cycle, we are ready to engage with something unknown and then slowly come in contact with it, get to know it, and allow it space and time to be lived and expressed in the conscious dimension. At the same time, the motion, the movement, the direction of these forces, because it goes into the unknown, challenges our sense of comfort. So it takes us out of our comfort zone. And at the same time would probably bring some sort of dissonance with the established conformity of our environment. But that's necessary, and we will feel longing, need to be in love and more alive with something that is almost unknown. The present situation won't sustain us anymore. And we will feel restless, anxious, irritable, because we miss something, that part of ourself that holds the vitality, but it is in the unconscious, and we currently don't have the contact with it and access to it. Completely opposite are the forces that Jung called persona. They are directed, their motion is directed towards adaptation to the environment. So I will be different when I quarrel with my husband, John O'Brien, who is also a co-author in this Unconscious Moderation app. I will be completely different when I speak to you. I will be completely different when I teach or when I'm with my child, and so on and so forth. So I will put different masks. And as long as these masks are at the same time revealing and breathing my true self to a certain extent, but focused and specified, adapted to certain situation or context in the environment, so that the environment can communicate with real me, that is fine. But quite often, a person identifies with the mask, with the persona. And for example, somebody is a medical doctor and nothing else they developed out of desperation or difficult situations in life, they developed only through their profession. They identified the whole light, the whole mystical, everything that we are with the role they play in their profession. And if something happens and they loses the job or they have problems, experience problems within their job life, they might commit suicide, as if that was the only thing that they knew. So we need to understand that the parts that pillar, the forces that exist in the pillar of persona go in the opposite direction to anima. They go towards the collective, towards the environment, towards the cultural norms or societal norms and so on, and demands, expectations, and we adapt to a certain extent, but not to the expense of our true personality. So it's a constant tension. Animus forces are the forces that manifest through masculine symbols that have masculine features, and they are to do with our unconscious rooted attitudes to something that is our own indigenous religion that we serve, even not knowing that we are serving it. So, for example, I can be open and flexible with anything in this world, but I'm so dutiful. And if I said I would do something at a certain time, the whole world can collapse. But I said that, and I'm serving the God of duty. Or I need to be subservient. I am taught and that I internalized, so I became like that unconsciously, that constantly need to help others. I need to serve others. I should put myself to the last place, and I'm serving the god or goddess of servitude, help, savior, whatever, and so on and so forth. So these are these attitudes, deeply entrenched beliefs, inner standpoints that we are serving. And it's like we have a religion which we are not conscious of that we are serving, and that is ruling our lives. More that we become conscious, we can realistically negotiate, and sometimes we will serve it, but then it wouldn't be serving, it would be conscious choice and freedom of choice. Something that we consciously actually believe in. Sometimes we will say, well, it's just ridiculous, it's too much, and it's okay if we don't do that, and so on and so forth. Now, anything that was not welcomed to the conscious dimension for living will be deemed as shadow. So shadow is not something bad and evil that we need to encounter. Could be that as well. It is anything that was not allowed to be lived in the conscious dimension. So what does it mean? For example, somebody was growing up and parents were very dutiful and orderly and expressing one's anger as a child, however justified, was sanctioned in whichever way. And the child got the information that expressing anger is bad. Now that child grows into an adult, they are not aware of that attitude and state of being that is ruling their value system, their beliefs, and so on and so forth. They simply act it out. So quite often, they would be victims of situations, partners, situations in work, interpersonal relationships, and so on and so forth, without ever setting a boundary and expressing that they are hurt, that they feel discomfort, that they object morally, ethically, emotionally, and so on and so forth, because it's inappropriate to express anger, and it's not allowed for them to be angry, and so on and so forth. So shadow can be very positive, and it holds enormously charged libidinal energy, power, vitality, that if gradually recognized, released, engaged with, transformed, it's like in fairy tales, which are collective narratives, we need to kiss the frog. And once when we engage with something that is not on the outset, at the beginning, nice, quite repulsive or horrifying like a monster, but we have compassion, we have empathy, curiosity, and we keep on engaging, it transforms into the most amazing ally. So Our unconscious urge to drink alcohol in an immoderate way, abusive way, is actually the first manifestation of our shadow. There is something, a whole package of the core reason why we are doing it. What do we long for, which is substituted from alcohol? And it requires gradual transformation and revealing of that energy that was cursed and redeeming it into its prime glory, how it once was, and that becomes our biggest ally.